This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
Coming up on this week's programme, our Deputy Minister of Research and Innovation outlines how he's achieving our digitisation.
We are building our digital wallet, our digital citizen app, and we expect the first version to be delivered before the end of the year. Beginning of December is our target. So in this first version, every citizen will have their app on which they can add for the first version 3 official documents.
The Rotary Club of Kyrenia is holding a drive to collect winter coats and jackets.
We're extending the drive to the 16th of the month. People can drop off the coats at the 2 collection points, one in Engomi and one in Old Nicosia.
And an upcoming lecture at the CVAR will look at adultery.
To give an overview of adultery, how it is seen and treated in the whole world.
On this week's programme, we're welcoming our Deputy Minister of Research and Innovation, Nikodimos Damianou, because we've been working for many years, I think, in Cyprus on improving our connection across society. Is that a fair way of putting it, Nikodimos? Because we've said e-government, e-justice, e-everything, and I'm wondering how far down the road we are.
Okay, I think that's a good way of putting it. One other way would be digital economy, if you like, but yes, that would be a good way of putting it. So the question is about where we stand, what we are going to be doing in these coming periods, if you like. So I think we should take a step back. That's my view. I've only been here for 9 months approximately. So the basic thing, I think, is to define the problem. Okay, when we talk about digitization, we're talking about 4 things really. We're talking about the government, e-government services. We're talking about infrastructure, connectivity. We talk about digital skills and experts. And we talk about the businesses, the digitization of the businesses. So these are the 4 things we need to, this is the scoping. Now, where are we with these 4 dimensions? Well, historically, Cyprus has been trailing in terms of the relevant European indices in this thing, in this space. However, we are seeing some important progress, especially during this year's report. So we are very hopeful that we have the grounds to build on. Now, in terms of the government services, which is what citizens understand, okay, and they have been expecting it for years now, I think, there are some fundamental things we need to realize. Now, to be quite honest, we are now in what most experts call the 4th industrial revolution, right? The merging of the physical with the digital and the biological world as well, defined by these new emerging technologies, AI, blockchain, virtual reality, robotics, and so on. Now, we need to understand that we still have some unresolved issues with the 3rd industrial revolution that we need to fix before we move there. Countries traditionally, governments actually, haven't been built with the citizen, with the business in mind. They have been built around themselves. So what we need to do now is we need to fix those siloed systems which were created through years of every ministry, every department building their own system, building their own database, identify those problems, ensure that there is interoperability, and make sure that the data is available at a central point for all the systems. Now,
how easy is it to make that interoperability? Because that's the, I think, defining question for most men in the street. You go to places like Estonia, you can do everything digitally. You can sign your name on government forms through your computer. Everything is done digitally, and we don't seem to have got even close to that.
Correct. 2 things there. One, to answer your question, the interoperability part, fixing the enterprise architecture is the most difficult thing we are set to do. That's going to take some time. But at the same time, we need to work, and that's what we're doing, to start delivering digital services. Okay? Taking examples from countries like Estonia. So Estonia for me can be the compass, but is not the map. Okay, why? Because Estonia did not have this problem when they started building this digital government ecosystem. They started from scratch. Okay, we are one of those countries, we are not the only one, who has this legacy architecture, legacy technology that they need to fix. However, we cannot wait for everything to be fixed before we start delivering services along the lines of what Estonia is doing, along the lines of what the UK or Greece, which is much closer to us, has already started doing. So that's exactly the approach we are following at the ministry. We have initiated this project of fixing the technology infrastructure, ensuring there is interoperability, but at the same time, we have engaged with the industry. Okay, we have built these constructs for agile development of digital services based on cloud technologies, and we have started exposing those data from these underlying systems that are needed to provide digital services. We have recently launched our central government portal. It's an initiative that has already started, but we are just trying to accelerate it. It's the gov.cy portal, and that's the main channel on which we are going to be building and delivering these sort of services.
How long is it going to take to build whatever you have to so that these services can be delivered?
No, these have started being delivered. We delivered approximately 25 services this year, citizen services, defense, Ministry of Defense services, and so on. Now, currently, we have more than 300 of those services on the gov.cy portal, 64 of which we call new generation services, and this has to do with the technology being used. So open source technologies, cloud technologies, unified standards, CY login to access these services, and we are incrementally going to be converting all of them into these new standards. But we have already started delivering the services. Now the question of when are you going to be done is not a question that I'm ready to answer, and it's not a valid question.
Well, I wouldn't ask it because with the way that technology advances,
Exactly.
I imagine that even if you think it's done, you're going to have to start again, going back and looking at what can be improved.
Exactly. This is a journey. This is not a project. This is a process that we are engaging in. The most difficult thing, remember when I mentioned a few minutes ago that governments historically haven't been built to support the citizen. They have been built to support themselves first of all, and then provide whatever services are needed. We don't just need to digitize those services, we need to transform those services. So we need to work with the other departments, other ministries, and that's what we are doing in this government, to ensure that it's not only digitization of what's existing, it's only transformation into more efficient services.
Right, let's talk a bit though about the e-government aspect,
Yes.
because correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that, well, you've already said, a lot of them built their own situation separately.
Correct.
But the fact that so many government departments, dare I say, are inefficient is because the way that the work is allocated means that different departments are dealing with different things, but they're not in a position to talk to each other or access the information that the other department that works on the other bit of that project has used. And without that, we're never going to achieve efficiency.
You are correct. This is a fundamental aspect that we need to address as a priority. The technology here is the enabler, okay? And technology is going to drive changes, but we need all of these departments to start changing the way they are operating as well, based on the capabilities that technology will provide. So interoperability, don't get me wrong, interoperability is a priority. Identifying the data, the citizen data, mapping those across the citizen journey, okay, is a priority, and that's we have started doing that. And that's going to be the true enabler for merging services, for ensuring that departments talk to each other in a proper way, and for enforcing the principle of ask once, store once. So ask the citizen for his data only once. Don't go and ask him, the citizen, every time you need something.
Okay, but it's not just about the citizens. I'm talking about the efficiency of government departments. For example, I think we all know that tax evasion in Cyprus is huge, absolutely huge. We've been waiting for years for the tax department to be digitally connected to whoever else in the government needs the information to actually find who is avoiding paying their taxes.
Okay, first of all, just a note that there's been tremendous improvements in terms of tax collection, and that's shown in the results of the tax department. Secondly, what you are saying about the tax department is happening now. The tax for all system that is running now is due to be completed by Q3, I think, of 2025. It's going to do exactly that. So it's going to help with the efficiency of the department, integration with the other systems. So that's happening as well. So that's what I would say about the tax.
And talking of systems, I remember reading about e-justice. Now that presented a problem, didn't it? Everybody thought, yes, we can speed up our judicial system. And it's something I think has been acknowledged for years from the top of government down. And something was done, but then it didn't work. I didn't quite follow why it was, if you like, taken off and you're working on it again. Okay, well, there was an interim system that is still supporting partly this digitization of this area. The judicial system is called iJustice. At the same time, there was a long-standing project called eJustice that was mandated to digitize the whole sector. Okay, that didn't go well. We had to stop that project, and that's the point where we are now. However, that doesn't mean that we are stopping the process or the effort of digitizing the judicial system or providing automation there. It's very critical. We understand that. So we are looking for the fastest possible ways to restart that project or build what's missing. So that's one of the important projects that we are set to deliver, and I would say that this has been pushed back a bit, but the target is to deliver something within the next 24 months, approximately. E-wallet is the next thought, because again, that's very much like I mentioned in Estonia. You can do all these things and access your own information immediately, and importantly, as per tax and everything else, the government can also access that information. So what's happening with the e-wallet, and how far are we going to go down that road? Because I seem to remember reading that perhaps it was your predecessor said we don't just need the basic e-wallet, we need to go further. Okay, we call it Digital Citizen App now. We don't call it e-wallet. But it's an EID wallet type of application that we are building. We have announced a collaboration with the Greek government, with the Ministry of Digital Transformation in Greece. They have their own wallet, GovGR wallet. It's been there for almost 3 years now, with more than 3.5 million users, if I'm not mistaken. So a well-defined and used solution. We are building our digital wallet, our Digital Citizen App, following that framework, and we expect the first version to be delivered before the end of the year. Beginning of December is our target. So in this first version, every citizen will have their app on which they can add, for the first version, 3 official documents. Their ID document in a digital form, their MOT and their driver's license, the MOT of their cars and their driver's license. That will be version number 1, which means I don't need to carry my physical ID or my driver's license wherever I go. It will be the same as adding my credit card or debit card onto a payment wallet and carrying that instead.
That would be the start of a journey of adding more digital documents and adding more services that will add convenience for the citizen. So that's what's happening with the digital wallet. Indeed, it has been announced in the past, maybe it was 2 years ago, as a continuation to the COVID scan application, if you remember that. Many countries managed to leverage that solution that they built because they needed it during the COVID lockdowns and build their wallets or other solutions. Unfortunately, in Cyprus, there was a breakdown after that, so we couldn't quite leverage on those solutions that we built during that period. Okay, now we are bringing it back, and it's going to be with us soon.
Two questions spring to mind. One is, do we have the infrastructure to support all this digitisation?
Well, the infrastructure comes with the technology. So when you're building a system, you are essentially building it on a technology infrastructure. So yes, we are building the technology infrastructure that is needed for these new solutions as we move along. We are now moving towards our cloud-first policy. So that's fundamental for us. What we are saying is that if we are going to be building a new system, if you are a ministry or a department that's going to be suggesting a new system, first of all, it needs to be approved by this deputy ministry. It needs to be centrally approved so that we ensure that it adheres to the standards and of the interoperability needed and the usability and the UX and so on, but also that it needs to be on the cloud if possible. Okay, that simplifies the infrastructure. It makes it more robust and more efficient. So that's how we are proceeding with the infrastructure.
My other question was going to be about the level of savvy, if you like, of most of the population in Cyprus. We all know the youngsters are much better than people my age at doing this, but we do have a lot of old people who they may have managed to come to terms with mobile phones, but an awful lot of them haven't got the first idea when it goes to going online and using, for example, an e-wallet. So are you involved in trying to, if you like, bring people up to scratch so that it's easy to use and you teach them how to use it?
Yes, absolutely. Remember I mentioned the 4 pillars of what digital economy, digital government means. One was digital skills. So what you are referring to is basic digital skills for the general population. And that, in that respect, we are a bit behind the European average, I have to admit. And that's a focus area for us, in collaboration, of course, with the Ministry of Education. But on our end, we are designing programs. We are collaborating with the relevant governmental departments to offer free seminars, free training for the elderly as well, people over 55 actually.
And people in rural areas where maybe they don't have access to a lot of this.
Exactly, and speaking about access, that's another angle. Telecommunications, access to services, to the internet, okay? And Cyprus is doing very well there, okay? We are one of the top 3 countries to have achieved 100% population coverage for 5G connectivity, and we have initiated a project now that is going to bring us to 100% population coverage for fixed high-speed connectivity as well by the end of 2025, which is an unbelievable achievement, actually. We're going to be the first country to have achieved that, and that's another fundamental component of allowing access to services. So that's very important. We mentioned Estonia when we were talking earlier, and a few times we mentioned their ability to sign everything. That's another project that we have announced. We have announced, and that's the first time the government is doing that we're going to be subsidizing the first 100,000 EIDs for citizens. An EID is the official way of any citizen to be identified in the online world, and also to digitally, electronically sign documents at the highest level of assurance, as it's called under the European regulation, the EIDAS, which means that any citizen who has access to their EID, our Cypriot EID has been approved by the European Commission, by the way, and it has a name. It's called idme.cy. So we'll be announcing that as well, hopefully before the end of the year again. So any citizen who has access to their e-ID will be able to digitally sign any document, and that will have the same validity as their handwritten signature. So
that will cut down on huge amounts of paperwork for a start. I mean, what do you think this will do for Cypriot efficiency across the board, not just the government?
Exactly, that's a very good point, and I'm glad you put it that way. It's not only about the government. It's a tool that we're providing to enable digitization of the economy. So if I have this tool at my disposal, I can sign a personal contract that I have with my landlord, for example, and we don't need to print it out and copy it 3 times and sign it and exchange it and so on. So it provides a tool for businesses as well, for vendors to start building solutions for that. But in terms of the government, it will allow us to offer the citizen and the business services that will simplify the process of filling out a form, signing it, okay, and sending it for execution.
And if I have to go to have a government official stamp my document that I have digitally signed, will they be able to do that digitally as well?
We are going to start introducing those things as well. So we are starting to give this tool out to the people, and then we will see how we can take advantage of this tool across the government departments.
We've been talking to our Deputy Minister for Research and Innovation, Nikodimos Damianos. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for yours.
This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
I'm joined now by the president of the Rotary Club of Kyrenia, because they have a drive on collecting jackets and warm winter clothes, because of course the temperature's dropping, and we know that a lot of vulnerable people here in Cyprus suffer greatly during the winter months. It's a warm welcome to Marina Gabriel, who is the president of the club. Marina, have you done this before? I know you've been collecting during the previous week, but it is going on, I think, a little bit longer for people who missed the initial collection last weekend.
Yes, first of all, thank you for having us here. This is our second annual code collection drive. This year we did a school bag drive earlier in September. So this is a second service project with codes. So last weekend we had a live event at the Mall of Cyprus where we collected a number of codes. And at the same time, we met people who just learned about it, so they wanted the opportunity to bring their codes as well. So we're extending the drive to the 16th of the month. People can drop off the codes at the 2 collection points, one in Engomi and one in Old Nicosia.
Where exactly? Can they find these online?
They can go to our Facebook page, Rotary Club of Kyrenia, and we have our flyer there. But I can also tell you the 2 business names. One is the Agathokleus Group on Kyriakou Matsis Street, number 18 in Engomi. And the other one is the Ifandurgio, the workplace, on Lefkonos 69 in Old Nicosia.
I think most people know where that is. They're very active, aren't they?
Exactly.
And who is going to benefit from these donations? How do you select the people who really need these coats and jackets?
Okay, that's actually an excellent question, because Rotary's motto is people of action. So essentially, we don't just write a check when we want to contribute to the community. We go directly to the source or to where the need is. So what we did with the school bag drive, we identified through our network schools that had students that were mostly in need. So we're going to return to 2 of those schools with coats for the children. And in the process, we also found out that the headmasters also function as community helpers in a way, so they help the parents as well. So adults will be able to benefit. And in addition, in the Greek Cypriot community, through churches. So we go to the community hubs where we know there's a need.
What other things does the Rotary do?
Well, the first thing that we need to distinguish is that Rotary is not a charity organization. It's a service organization. It's a humanitarian organization. What we're doing with the codes falls under the umbrella of a service project. We also do large infrastructure projects around the world. There are 46,000 clubs around the world and 19 in Cyprus. And the other things we do are through grants. We help, as I said, maybe examples in Cyprus are to donate equipment to hospitals, to do sustainable projects for the environment. We also do disaster aid. For example, the earthquake in Turkey, the current crisis in Lebanon, things like that. So there are various ways in which Rotary applies its humanitarian efforts. The other thing we do a lot of here in Cyprus, we have dinner talks with various prominent community leaders, whether from the government or from other institutions, that give their expertise about a particular project. Recently, we had fellow Carinian Athina Michailidou, who spoke about the challenges in her ministry and how she's implementing innovative measures to combat them. So those are some of the examples of what Rotary does.
But most people, we're going to say, should go as soon as possible to the Facebook page of the Rotary Club of Kyrenia, get the details of where they can drop off. Perfect time for going through the cupboards.
Yes.
Particularly if you've got children who grow so fast, and sorting out what they've grown out of, winter clothes only, and coats and jackets, and dropping them off at your drop-off points. Many thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
And this week I think we'll end on perhaps a lighter note, because there's a lecture coming up at the CVAR on the 14th of November about adultery. Well, normally the CVAR deals with archaeology and history, photographs and whatever, so I've asked their director, Dr. Rita Severis, to tell me what she means when she sets up a lecture on adultery. Come on, Rita, what's this all about?
Hello, Rosie. As we're reaching the end of the year, I thought perhaps we'll do something completely different and on a lighter touch. So I thought of adultery as a common denominator between the Greek and Turkish community, and of course, a common denominator of all the communities in the world. So we decided with Dr. Ahmet Javid An, a Turkish Cypriot friend, to work on this subject. And what we thought of was to give an overview of adultery, how it is seen and treated in the whole world, and how it appears in literature, in poetry, in art, in opera, in music, and also to give some examples, cases that reach the news.
They don't reach the news so much anymore because isn't it fairly accepted almost now,
exactly.
Whereas in the old days there were terrible punishments.
Terrible punishment, imprisonment, fines. It was at one stage it was a reason for divorce.
Is there a different attitude to it in the north and the south?
No, the attitude is the same. But certainly there's a different attitude from east to west. In the Middle East, adultery is really punishable. And in the Far East, they still have the stoning and the public execution, etc., especially for women.
So it's not quite as light a topic as we may think. But this is happening, I know, on the 14th of November. What time and where?
7 o'clock at CVAR, at the Centre for Visual Arts and Research.
And that is, of course, in Old Nicosia. So if you want to find out more about attitudes to adultery across the ages and now, and indeed in the north and south of Cyprus, go and join them. Dr. Rita Severis, many thanks.
Thank you, Rosie.
Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.